You know, it's a strange thing how we can live an entire lifetime and still carry one moment that won't let go. Maybe it was something you said in anger or something you didn't say when it mattered most. Maybe it was walking away when you should have stayed or staying silent when you should have spoken up. Regret doesn't always come like thunder. It shows up quiet, years later, sitting beside you at the dinner table, whispering into your silence. And if you've lived long enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people will tell you to just move on, that what's done is done. But those words don't sit right, do they? Because deep down, something in you still aches for closure, for peace, for the chance not to erase the past, but to make it right. And if you're watching this, maybe you've asked the question more times than you'd admit. Is it too late? The world has a habit of making older people feel like their time is up, that your best chapters are behind you, that change is for the young, and second chances are for someone else. But that's a lie, a cruel one, and it's not from God. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. The Bible is full of people who got it wrong, people who failed, people who ran, people who betrayed trust, walked in shame and stared at the ruins of their own choices. But here's the difference. God didn't write them off. He rewrote their stories, and if you think he won't do the same for you, then maybe you haven't met the real Jesus. This message isn't for perfect people. It's for those of us who wish we could go back and do it differently. It's for those who wonder if they missed their moment. It's for the man who hasn't spoken to his son in 20 years. For the woman who still tears up when she hears the name of the baby she never got to hold. For the quiet ones who carry a loud ache. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to remind you that heaven never runs out of mercy, that God is not pacing the floor, disappointed in you. He's standing at the door waiting, and while you may not be able to turn back time, you can turn your heart. You can pick up the phone, you can bow your head, you can take one trembling step in the right direction. No matter what the world says, it is not too late to make things right. Are you ready to believe that? Then keep watching, because this isn't the end. This could be the beginning of the most beautiful chapter yet. Section 1. The ache that won't go away. Let's be honest with each other for a moment. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It doesn't knock you off your feet or send you rushing to the hospital. No, this one is quieter than that. It lives deep inside, tucked behind your smiles, behind your I'm doing fine, behind the way you keep busy during the day and toss and turn at night. It's the ache of regret. And if you're like most people, especially those of us who've lived a little longer, you know exactly what I mean. You remember the moment, don't you? Maybe you've replayed it 1,000 times in your mind, what you said, what you didn't say, what you wish you could undo. It could have been a falling out with a friend, a relationship that shattered over pride, a decision you made that changed everything. Maybe it wasn't one moment, but a series of little choices that drifted you further from the person you wanted to be. Some of us regret the things we did. Others carry the weight of what we failed to do. And here's what makes it even harder. People around you don't see it. You're the strong one, the dependable one, the one who kept everything running when life got messy. But behind closed doors, there's a question you whisper to yourself when nobody's listening. Can I ever fix this? And let me tell you, regret has a cruel way of convincing us that it's too late, that the damage is done, that there's no path back to peace. You've lived with it this long. What's the point in hoping now, right? But here's where I need you to lean in. Because regret may be real, but it's not final. And that ache that keeps tugging at your heart, it may not be a curse, it may be a calling to take a step, to open a door, to pick up a phone, to bow your head. A calling from a God who still believes in you, even when you've stopped believing in yourself. That ache may be God's gentle way of saying, I'm not finished with you yet. So don't push it down, don't hide from it. Let's talk about it. Let's bring it into the light, because what you're carrying might just be the seed of something beautiful, something that only grace can grow. Section 2. The man who ran from God and got a second chance. Have you ever tried to run away from something you knew God was calling you to face? Jonah did. And not just in a metaphorical way, he actually packed a bag, bought a boat ticket, and ran in the opposite direction. God had told him clearly, go to Nineveh. Jonah didn't hesitate to respond. He just said no. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to face the people. He didn't want to carry out God's plan. Maybe he thought it was too hard. Maybe he thought they didn't deserve mercy. Or maybe deep down, he just didn't believe he was the right man for the job. Whatever the reason, Jonah ran. Now, before we shake our heads at Jonah, we should ask ourselves something. How many times have we done the same? Maybe God nudged you to forgive someone, but the pain was too fresh. Maybe you felt the tug to reach out and make amends, but pride whispered, let it go. Maybe you were called to speak life into someone's darkness, but fear told you to stay silent. We've all got our boats to Tarshish, our escape routes, our reasons, our detours. But here's the part we can't miss. Jonah's running didn't stop God's plan. It delayed it. Yes, it brought a storm. It landed him in the belly of a fish. But even there, even in the lowest, darkest, most hopeless place, God wasn't done with him. In Jonah 3, we read a sentence that changes everything. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. A second time. That's what grace looks like. God didn't give up on Jonah. He didn't say, you blew it, I'll find someone else. He spoke again. He opened the door again. He believed in Jonah again. You might be sitting in the belly of your own regret, surrounded by darkness, convinced you've gone too far, messed up too badly, waited too long. But God still speaks the second time. You're not disqualified. You're not discarded. You're just being readied for redemption. Jonah got up. He went to Nineveh. He delivered the message he was supposed to deliver in the first place. And because of that, an entire city turned to God. One man's second chance became the beginning of mercy for thousands. That's what God can do through a life that says yes, even after failure. Section 3. The disciple who failed and found forgiveness. Let's talk about someone you've probably heard of. His name is Peter. He wasn't just one of Jesus' disciples. He was one of the closest. He walked on water. He was there for the miracles. He saw Jesus transfigured in glory. He was bold, loud, and full of passion. The kind of guy who says what everyone else is only thinking. And when Jesus warned that dark days were coming, Peter didn't hesitate. He puffed up his chest and said, even if everyone else deserts you, I never will. But then came the night. Jesus was arrested and Peter followed from a distance. He sat outside trying to stay close but safe. And then someone looked at him and said, aren't you one of his followers? And Peter said, no, not once, not twice, 3 times. 3 times he denied even knowing the man he had sworn to love and follow. And on the third denial, the rooster crowed just as Jesus had said it would. Peter went out and wept bitterly. Can you imagine the weight of that? To fail someone you love not privately, but publicly. To fall so hard so fast that even your own voice sounds like a stranger's. Some of us know that feeling. You were strong once. You led others. You loved God deeply, but something happened. A decision, a drift, a moment you wish you could take back. And now you wonder if that failure disqualified you for good. But Peter's story didn't end there. After Jesus rose from the dead, he could have gone anywhere. He could have avoided Peter. He could have left him in his shame. But he didn't. Instead, Jesus found Peter. And not just anywhere, he met him by a fire. A fire just like the one Peter had stood beside when he denied him the same setting. But this time, Jesus wasn't there to condemn. He was there to restore. He looked Peter in the eye and asked, do you love me? 3 times. Not to shame him, but to undo the sting of each denial. One, I love you, for every I don't know him. And then Jesus said something beautiful, feed my sheep. In other words, you're still mine. I still trust you. Let's begin again. Peter went on to become a pillar of the early church. The man who fell became the man who stood. The man who denied became the man who declared Christ boldly, even to his death. Failure didn't define Peter, forgiveness did. And if you've been carrying a moment like Peter's, a sharp, painful memory, you can't shake, then hear this with every fiber of your heart. Jesus still meets people by the fire. He still asks the question not to humiliate, but to heal. And when you say, yes, Lord, I love you, he says, then walk with me again. Section 4. The lie that keeps us stuck. There's a lie that's incredibly common among people who carry long-term regret. It sneaks in quietly, but once it settles, it does real damage. It goes like this. It's too late now. Too late to say sorry. Too late to change the story. Too late to reach out to make peace, to find your way back. And that lie is persuasive. It hides behind facts and logic. It points to the years that have passed, the people who've moved on, the wounds that seem too deep. It convinces you that your only role now is to sit quietly with your mistakes. But I want to tell you something that may stop you in your tracks. That voice isn't God. God never says it's too late for grace. That's not how he works. In fact, Jesus told a parable once about a man who hired workers throughout the day. Some started at sunrise, others at mid-morning, a few at noon. But the last group, he found them just before closing time. And guess what? He paid them the same. That story used to confuse me. Why would the last ones receive what the first ones did? But it's not about the hours worked, it's about the heart of the master. Jesus wasn't teaching economics, he was teaching mercy. It was his way of saying, even if you show up late in the day, you're still welcome in my vineyard, you still matter, you still belong. So when that voice whispers to you, it's too late, I want you to whisper back something stronger. God's not finished with me yet. Maybe the phone call hasn't happened. Maybe the apology hasn't been made. Maybe you haven't prayed in a long time, but that doesn't mean it's over. As long as there's breath in your lungs and a beat in your chest, the invitation still stands. The prodigal son came home dirty, broke, and ashamed, and his father ran to him, ran. Not after a speech, not after proving himself, just as he was. And that father, that's the heart of God toward you. It's not too late. Not for healing, not for change, not for restoration. You don't have to fix everything overnight, but you can open your heart today. You can make one choice that leads you closer to peace. One step, one prayer, one conversation, and sometimes that's all it takes to turn a page. Section 5. When you can't change the past, but you can still change the story. By now, maybe you're thinking, I hear you, but what about the things I can't undo? That's a real question, and it deserves a real answer. Because sometimes the damage feels permanent. The person you wanted to apologize to isn't here anymore. The opportunity that slipped through your fingers, it's gone. And there's this sting that lingers, the sense that no matter what you do now, the past will always have the final word. But here's the truth. Your past might shape you, but it doesn't own you. Yes, there are some things we can't reverse. We can't rewrite every chapter. We don't get to rewind the tape, but that doesn't mean the story's over. You see, God doesn't just work with perfect timelines. He works with surrendered hearts. And even when we think it's too late, he shows us how to start again, right where we are. Sometimes redemption doesn't look like going back. It looks like going forward differently. Let me give you an example. There's a man I met who hadn't spoken to his brother in over 30 years. They were both stubborn, proud, and the silence between them became its own wall. Then one day the brother passed away, just like that. No closure, no conversation, just a phone call and a funeral. The man told me I missed my chance to make things right. But he didn't stop there. You know what he did next? He took that grief and that regret and he used it as a reason to start making amends everywhere else. He reconciled with his daughter. He forgave his ex-wife. He called an old friend he hadn't spoken to in years and simply said, I'm sorry I hurt you. I don't expect anything. I just needed to say it. He didn't get the ending he wanted with his brother, but he honored his story by choosing a better way forward. You can do the same. You can't fix everything and you're not meant to, but you can take your pain and let it fuel peace. You can let the tears you've cried become the water that grows something new. You can choose to live the rest of your story with courage, humility, and love, because even if the past can't be changed, the future still listens. And God knows how to turn the ashes into beauty, the wounds into wisdom, the silence into a song. Section 6. The most important step you'll ever take. Let's talk about the step that matters most, not just the practical stuff like picking up the phone or writing a letter. Those things are important, but they're not the beginning. The most important step you'll ever take in making things right is the step back to God. I know for some of you, this is the part where your heart gets quiet. Maybe you've believed in God all your life, but lately he's felt far. Or maybe you're not even sure he still wants to hear from you. You think about the time you wasted, the prayers you didn't pray, the promises you broke, and you wonder if there's still room for you. I want you to hear me clearly. God is not tired of you. He's not disappointed in you. He's not standing off in the distance, arms crossed, waiting for you to get your act together. No, he's a father on the porch looking down the road, hoping today's the day you come home. And when he sees you coming, he runs. That's who he is. This isn't about religion or perfection or trying harder. It's about coming as you are, just like the prodigal son, empty-handed, and hurting and trusting that grace will meet you at the door. If you're carrying regret, this is where it gets lighter. You don't have to carry it alone. You can lay it down. Every sin, every missed chance, every wrong word, every wasted year, lay it at the feet of the one who already carried it to the cross. There's a kind of healing that only comes when we stop trying to fix everything ourselves and let Jesus take hold of our hearts. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel more worthy. Come now. Come honestly. Come with the tears, with the questions, with the regret. You'll find mercy. You'll find peace. And more than anything, you'll find a God who hasn't changed his mind about you. It's not too late. Not to return, not to be forgiven, not to walk with God again. And when that happens, when the heart turns back to him, everything else begins to change too. Section 7. What making things right might actually look like. Let's bring this closer to home, because maybe you've been listening and thinking, okay, I get it. I believe it's not too late. But what does making things right actually look like for someone like me? I'm glad you're asking, because this isn't about grand gestures. It's not always some sweeping act of reconciliation or standing in front of a crowd confessing your past. Sometimes it's as small and sacred as a whispered prayer. Sometimes it's just showing up. Maybe it means writing a letter you'll never send, simply because the person is gone, but your heart still needs to say it. That's not pointless. That's healing. Maybe it means calling your adult son or daughter and not trying to explain everything, just saying, I love you and I wish I had done better. Not every relationship gets tied up in a neat bow, but honesty has a power all its own. It says, I'm willing to go first. Maybe it's forgiving someone who never apologized. You're not doing it for them, you're doing it so the bitterness won't rot your peace anymore. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means releasing yourself from being chained to that moment forever. And maybe it's time to stop punishing yourself for the person you used to be. Regret has a way of chaining us to the version of ourselves that made the mistake. But that version of you, they're not here anymore. You've grown, you've learned, you've softened, you've survived. Making things right isn't about rewriting the past. It's about living differently today. It's about turning towards someone instead of away. It's about opening your hands instead of closing your heart. It's about asking, what's one thing I can do now with the time I have to bring a little more love into the world I'm still in? And you know what's beautiful? Those small steps matter more than you think. Because to the person on the other end of your voice, your apology or your phone call or your quiet act of kindness might be the thing they've been praying for. Making things right looks like walking in humility. It looks like choosing peace over pride. It looks like loving someone even when it hurts. And when you do that, you're not just undoing regret, you're writing redemption into your story. Section 8. What if the regret is with yourself? Let's talk about something we don't often say out loud. What if the person you need to forgive is you? This one's tough because sometimes we're the hardest ones to let off the hook. We replay the same failure in our minds again and again. We look back on our lives at the people we hurt, the opportunities we lost, the damage we caused, and we hold ourselves hostage. We think if I had just been stronger, if I had just said no, if I had just walked away, and we carry that shame like a badge, punishing ourselves quietly every day, believing that we deserve the burden. But let me ask you something. If Jesus forgave you, why haven't you? If God, who is holy and perfect, has already thrown your sin into the sea of forgetfulness, what gives you the right to keep fishing it back out? I don't ask that harshly. I ask that as someone who knows what it's like to hold on to guilt like it's sacred, but friend, guilt is not a gift. It's a weight, and you were never meant to carry it forever. Sometimes the most powerful act of making things right is accepting that God's grace is bigger than your worst moment. You don't have to earn his forgiveness. That's already been done on the cross by the one who knew everything about you and still said, you're worth dying for. I know it's hard. Maybe you feel like forgiving yourself lets you off too easy, but grace doesn't erase the cost, it honors it. It says, I don't deny what happened, but I trust that God can do something greater with it. So here's what I want you to do. When the old guilt comes knocking, when the should-haves and if-onlys creep in, I want you to respond with truth. I want you to say, that's who I was, but that's not who I am now. I'm forgiven, I'm free, I'm still here, and I'm walking forward. You're not defined by your worst day. You're not stuck in that old chapter. God's mercy is enough. It always has been, it always will be. And yes, you can live in that freedom starting right now. Conclusion. This is not the end. If you've made it this far with me, then I want you to know something very simple and very true. You didn't just watch a video today. You took a step. Maybe it didn't feel like one. Maybe you just clicked out of curiosity or because something in the title tugged at your heart. But here you are. And that tells me something about you. It tells me that the regret you carry isn't just pain, it's a sign of love. It means your heart hasn't gone cold, it means you still care. And that alone, that's the beginning of redemption. You've probably lived through a lot. More than most people know, you've seen love rise and fall. You've watched friends come and go. You've made mistakes, some you've forgiven others. You've carried like shadows that follow you into every quiet room. And yet here you are listening, searching, hoping that maybe, just maybe, God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't. In fact, he's been walking with you through every season, even the ones you thought he missed, the ones where the tears hit the pillow and no one else saw, the ones where you said things you wish you could take back, the ones where you walked away from him, not because you stopped believing, but because you didn't believe he'd still want you. But he did, he does, he always will. You see, the story of Jesus isn't about people who got it right. It's about people who got it wrong and then turned back. It's about rebels and runners, doubters and deniers, people like Jonah and Peter, people like you and me. And the good news, God specializes in using the ones who thought they were finished. So let me speak this over your life. It is not too late. Not to say I'm sorry, not to pick up the phone, not to ask God to heal the wound you buried, not to forgive yourself, not to love again, not to come home. You don't need to fix everything overnight. You don't need to pretend the past didn't happen. You just need to start right now with honesty and humility, with a heart that says, God, if you still want me, I'm yours. And I promise you this, he does. Maybe today is the day you stop rehearsing the old pain and start receiving the new mercy. Maybe today is the day you trade shame for grace. Maybe today is your second chance. So take a deep breath. Let the weight start to fall from your shoulders. Let that ache in your chest begin to ease. You're not alone anymore. You are deeply loved, fully known, completely forgiven. And no matter how long it's been, no matter what you've done or failed to do, you still have time to make things right. Let's walk forward now, not perfectly, but faithfully, one step at a time with God by your side. And that, my friend, is where the healing begins.